I found out my sister intercepted the email offering me the VP position, sending a decline on my behalf because she didn't want me moving across the country. She thought she kept me dependent, kept me exactly where she needed me to be, her permanent built-in safety net. She thought she had successfully clipped my wings. What she didn't realize was that while she was busy trying to keep me trapped in her shadow, I was quietly building an empire in the dark. And she definitely didn't realize that 3 years later, when she signed the lease on her gorgeous new downtown apartment, I was the one holding the deed to the entire building. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Whispered Drama Stories. I am so glad you found your way here today. If you are a returning listener, welcome back to our safe harbor. If you are new to the channel, please make yourself at home. Grab a warm cup of coffee, wrap yourself up in a comfortable blanket, and take a deep breath. This is a space where we unravel the complicated, often hidden realities of toxic family dynamics. We talk about the subtle manipulations, the suffocating expectations, and the incredible, quiet power of finally walking away and building a life that is entirely your own. Today's story is about sibling dynamic, but not the normal, everyday sibling rivalry. We are talking about severe, toxic codependency. We are talking about a sister who viewed my success not as something to celebrate, but as a direct threat to her own comfort. This is a story about ultimate betrayal, but more importantly, it is a story about ultimate, silent vindication. To really understand how someone could possibly justify hacking into their own sister's email to destroy her career, you have to understand the ecosystem we grew up in. My younger sister Chloe and I were raised in a house that operated on a very specific, very rigid emotional currency. Chloe was what my parents called the fragile one. From the moment she was born, she was anxious, demanding, and constantly in need of soothing. If she was upset, the entire house had to stop what they were doing to regulate her emotions. My parents were exhausted, and quite frankly, they took the path of least resistance. Instead of teaching Chloe how to manage her anxiety or handle disappointment, they simply eliminated anything that might cause her distress. And more often than not, the primary tool they used to keep Chloe comfortable was me. I was the older sister. I was the strong one, the independent one. What that actually translated to was the invisible one. My role in the family was to be the shock absorber for Chloe's life. If we were sharing a toy and Chloe started to cry, I was told to give it to her because, you are older, you understand. If I had a sleepover planned with my friends but Chloe felt lonely, my parents would force me to cancel because, your sister needs you. By the time we reached our 20s, this dynamic had completely solidified into something dark and suffocating. I had gone to a local college, lived at home to save money, and immediately started working in corporate logistics. I was doing well, but I felt like I was suffocating under the weight of my family. Chloe, on the other hand, was 24 and completely incapable of functioning as an adult. She lived in a rental house about 10 minutes away from my parents, but she couldn't keep a job for more than a few months. She would quit because the boss was mean or the environment was too toxic. My parents subsidized her life, paying her rent and car insurance, but they constantly relied on me to manage her day-to-day crises. If her car got a flat tire, she didn't call AAA. She called me at work, weeping hysterically until I left my desk to come change it. If she had a fight with her boyfriend, she would show up at my apartment at 2 in the morning, expecting me to stay awake and counsel her until the sun came up. I was her emotional support animal, her personal assistant, and her ultimate safety net. And she loved it. She loved knowing that no matter what happened, I was tethered to her. She used her anxiety as a weapon to keep me close. Whenever I talked about wanting to travel, or maybe taking a job in another city, the manipulation would start immediately. "I just don't know what I would do without you here," she would say, her eyes welling up with tears. "My panic attacks have been so bad lately. Mom and Dad don't understand me like you do. If you leave, I think I might literally end up in the hospital." And then my parents would chime in. "You can't leave your sister, honey. You know how fragile she is. Family has to stick together. You have a good job right here. Why do you need to go looking for something else?" I bought into it for a long time. The guilt was a heavy, suffocating blanket that I wore every single day. But right around my 28th birthday, something inside me shifted. I was exhausted. I looked at my life and realized that I was completely empty. I had no serious relationship, no hobbies, no real joy, because every ounce of my energy was being siphoned off by my family. I decided I needed an escape hatch, and I needed it to be bulletproof. I started quietly applying for high-level positions in cities that were at least a 4-hour flight away. I wanted an ocean, or a mountain range, or preferably both, between me and my sister's daily manufactured crises. After months of searching, I found it. It was a vice president of operations role for a rapidly growing tech logistics firm based out of Seattle. It was a massive leap in my career. The salary was almost double what I was making. The benefits were incredible, and the relocation package was incredibly generous. But more than the money, it represented freedom. It represented a life where my phone wouldn't ring at 3 a.m. with someone else's emergency. I applied, not really expecting to hear back, but 2 days later, a recruiter called. The interview process was grueling. It was 5 separate rounds over the course of a month. I did video calls on my lunch breaks, hiding in my car in the parking lot of my current job. I spent my weekends poring over case studies and preparing massive slide decks for their executive team. I poured my absolute soul into this opportunity. I wanted it so badly I could physically ache with it. I made the mistake of telling my family during the 3rd round of interviews. I was just so excited. I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. We were at a Sunday dinner at my parents' house. I casually mentioned that I was in the running for a VP role in Seattle. The reaction was immediate and completely freezing. My mother dropped her fork. Seattle? That is on the other side of the country. You can't be serious. It's an amazing opportunity, Mom. I tried to explain, my voice already tightening defensively. It's a massive step up. They even pay for the relocation. Chloe, sitting across from me, went entirely pale. She stared at me, her eyes darting back and forth as if I had just announced I was joining a cult. You're leaving me? She whispered, her voice trembling perfectly on cue. You're just moving away? What about my anxiety? What about the fact that my landlord is trying to raise my rent, and I need you to help me find a new place? You're just going to abandon us for a job? Chloe, I am not abandoning you, I said, trying to keep my tone even. You are 24 years old. You have mom and dad. I need to build my own life. I can't stay here forever just to be your backup plan. The dinner descended into absolute chaos. Chloe had a full-blown meltdown. She hyperventilated, locked herself in the bathroom, and refused to come out. My parents turned on me entirely, accusing me of being selfish, career-obsessed, and cold-hearted. They told me I was deliberately triggering my sister's mental health issues. I left the house that night feeling sick to my stomach. But for the first time in my life, I didn't back down. I didn't call Chloe to apologize. I drove back to my apartment, opened my laptop, and spent 4 hours refining my final presentation for the Seattle firm. I was going to get this job, and I was going to leave. 2 weeks later, I had the final interview. It was a 2-hour video conference with the CEO and the board of directors. I absolutely crushed it. I knew I did. The CEO smiled warmly at the end of the call, thanked me for my incredible insights, and told me that the hiring manager, a woman named Sarah, would be in touch by the end of the week with their final decision. I floated for the next 3 days. I started casually browsing apartment listings in Seattle. I started mentally packing my boxes. That Friday evening, Chloe showed up at my apartment unannounced. She looked completely different than the hysterical girl from Sunday dinner. She looked calm. She brought a pizza, a bottle of wine, and an apology. I'm sorry about how I reacted, she said, sitting on my couch and pouring us both a glass of wine. I know I can be a lot. I was just scared. But I talked to my therapist and she said I need to learn to be happy for you. So, if you get this job, I want to celebrate with you. I was so relieved. I wanted to believe that my sister was finally growing up. I wanted to believe that we could have a normal relationship. I let my guard down completely. We ate pizza, we drank wine, and we watched a movie. Around 9 p.m., my phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was a text from Sarah, the hiring manager in Seattle. Hi, just wanted to let you know we sent over an email regarding the VP position. Please review when you have a moment and let me know your thoughts. Have a great weekend. My heart leapt into my throat. They sent the email. It had to be the offer. Usually rejections are just standard, automated emails. A personal text from the hiring manager meant an offer letter was sitting in my inbox. I jumped up from the couch. Oh my God, the recruiter just texted me. They sent the email. Chloe's eyes widened. Open it. Let's see. I ran to my kitchen island where my laptop was resting, plugged into the charger. I opened the lid, the screen glowing brightly in the dim kitchen. I opened my email client. Nothing. The inbox was empty. I refreshed it. Still nothing. I checked the spam folder. Empty. That's weird, I muttered, frowning at the screen. She said she just sent it, but it's not here. Maybe there's a delay with the server, Chloe said casually from the couch, taking a sip of her wine. You know how corporate emails can be. Why don't you go take a quick shower, wash the day off, and I bet it will be there when you get out. It made sense. It had been a long, stressful day. I was sweating from anxiety. Yeah, okay. Let me know if you hear the notification chime. I left my laptop open and unlocked on the kitchen island and walked into the bathroom. I took a 10-minute shower. I stood under the hot water, trying to calm my racing heart, visualizing my new office in Seattle. When I walked back out into the living room, wearing my bathrobe and drying my hair with a towel, Chloe was putting her coat on. Hey, I suddenly got a massive migraine, she said, rubbing her temples. I think the wine triggered it. I'm going to head home and sleep it off. Did the email come? I walked over to the laptop and refreshed the screen. Still nothing. No, not yet, I said, feeling a knot of disappointment forming in my stomach. I guess she drafted it, but didn't actually hit send before leaving the office. Or maybe it's stuck in their outbox. I'll just check it in the morning. I'm sure it's fine, Chloe said, giving me a quick, tight hug. Let me know when you hear. Good night. She left. I spent the entire weekend refreshing my email every 5 minutes. Friday night, nothing. Saturday, nothing. Sunday, nothing. By Monday morning, the knot in my stomach had turned into a suffocating panic. The tech industry moves fast. They don't just leave a candidate hanging after sending a text like that. I tried to convince myself that there was an IT issue on their end, but a dark, terrifying feeling was starting to settle over me. At 10 a.m. on Monday, I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped out of my office, went into the quiet stairwell of my building, and dialed Sarah's direct number. She answered on the second ring. Her tone was completely different than the warm, enthusiastic text from Friday. It was crisp, professional, and undeniably cold. Hello? Hi, Sarah. This is calling. I am so sorry to bother you. I received your text on Friday night about an email regarding the VP position, but nothing ever came through on my end. I've checked my spam folders and everything. I just wanted to touch base and see if perhaps there was a glitch. There was a long, incredibly painful silence on the other end of the line. I'm confused, Sarah finally said. I sent the official offer letter to your email address at 8:45 p.m. on Friday, and we received your reply declining the offer at 9:15 p.m. The stairwell started to spin. I grabbed the cold metal railing to steady myself. I'm sorry, what? I gasped, the air completely leaving my lungs. I never sent a reply. I never received the offer. I am looking at the email right now, Sarah said, her voice turning slightly defensive. It came from your address. It states that after careful consideration, you have decided that relocating away from your family is not something you are prepared to do at this time, and you are withdrawing your candidacy. We have already extended the offer to our second-choice candidate this morning, and they have accepted. I felt like I had been physically struck by a car. My brain couldn't process the words. Relocating away from your family is not something you are prepared to do. Sarah, please, I begged, tears instantly springing to my eyes. I didn't write that. Someone else, my sister, was in my apartment. I left my laptop open. Please, you have to believe me. I want this job. I will fly out tomorrow. Listen, Sarah said softly, the corporate coldness dropping for a second, replaced by genuine pity. Even if what you are saying is true, we have already moved on. We need an executive who has absolute control over their professional communications and their personal life. If your family dynamic is volatile enough that someone is intercepting your career offers, we cannot risk bringing that instability into our C-suite. I am truly sorry, but the decision is final. She hung up the phone. I sat down on the concrete stairs and put my head in my hands. The betrayal was so massive, so incomprehensible, that I couldn't even cry. It was just a hollow, ringing silence in my head. I didn't go back to my desk. I walked straight to my car, drove home, and walked into my apartment. I went to the kitchen island, opened my laptop, and opened my email client. I didn't look in the inbox. I didn't look in the sent folder, because I knew whoever did this wouldn't be stupid enough to leave the evidence there. I clicked on the deleted items folder. I scrolled down to Friday evening, and there it was. 2 emails, permanently deleted from the active folders but still sitting in the trash recovery. The first was from Sarah, timestamped 8:45 p.m. It was a beautiful, glowing offer letter, a $180,000 base salary, a $30,000 signing bonus, full relocation. It was the key to my freedom. The second email was my reply, timestamped 9:15 p.m., right around the time I was standing in the shower. Dear Sarah, thank you so much for this incredible offer. Unfortunately, after deep reflection, I realize I cannot leave my sister and my family behind. They rely on me too much, and staying close to home is my true priority. I must respectfully decline. Best of luck with your search. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Chloe didn't come over to celebrate with me. She didn't come over to apologize. She came over to intercept the email she knew was coming, and she completely assassinated my future to ensure she didn't have to face her own life. She sabotaged my dream to keep me securely locked in my cage. For the first time in my entire life, the caretaker inside of me completely died. The girl who made excuses for her sister. The girl who absorbed the blows. The girl who tried to keep the peace. She vanished in that kitchen. I didn't call Chloe to scream at her. I didn't drive to my parents' house to demand justice, because I knew exactly what they would say. They would say Chloe made a mistake out of love. They would say I was overreacting. They would protect her, just like they always did. Screaming wouldn't give me my job back. Confrontation wouldn't change the past. I slowly closed the laptop. I walked into my bedroom, pulled out a notepad, and sat down at my desk. If she wanted me to stay close to home, I would stay close to home. But I was never, ever, going to be her safety net again. Instead, I was going to become something she could never escape. The next morning, I woke up, got dressed in my usual corporate attire, and drove to work. I didn't say a single word to my sister. I didn't call my parents. I just went to my office, sat at my desk, and stared at the wall for a solid hour. I was mourning. I was mourning the career I had literally held in my hands, and I was mourning the absolute, final death of the illusion that I had a sister who loved me. I waited exactly 3 days before I broke the news. I drove over to my parents' house for a midweek dinner. Chloe was there, of course, sitting on the sofa and pretending to be intensely interested in a magazine. I sat down at the kitchen table, took a deep breath, and put on the performance of a lifetime. I looked down at my hands and softly told them that the Seattle firm had decided to go with an internal candidate. I told them the offer never came. The immediate, palpable wave of relief that washed over that room was sickening. My mother actually exhaled a loud, physical sigh, her shoulders dropping 2 inches. She immediately came over, wrapped her arms around me, and kissed the top of my head. "Oh, honey, I am so sorry you didn't get it," my mother said, her voice dripping with a fake, patronizing sympathy. But honestly, everything wrapped her arms around me and kissed the top of my head. "Oh, honey, I am so sorry you didn't get it," my mother said, her voice dripping with a fake, patronizing sympathy. But honestly, everything happens for a reason. Seattle is so far away, and it rains all the time. You belong here, with us, where it's safe. Chloe walked into the kitchen, a perfectly crafted look of concern on her face. She hugged me. I let her. I felt her arms wrap around my shoulders, and I felt absolutely nothing. No warmth, no sisterly bond, just cold, clinical detachment. "I'm sorry," Chloe whispered, "but Mom is right. We need you here. I ordered those cupcakes you like from the bakery downtown to cheer you up." I smiled. I actually smiled at her, took a cupcake out of the pink cardboard box, and took a bite. "Thanks, Chloe," I said. "You're right. I'm exactly where I need to be." It was the last time I ever ate anything she gave me, and it was the last time she ever had any access to my true thoughts, feelings, or plans. From that moment on, I put my family on a strict, unbreakable information diet. I utilized a psychological tactic known as the gray rock method. Whenever I was around them, I became as boring, unreactive, and emotionally flat as a gray rock in the mud. I didn't share my hopes, I didn't share my frustrations, and most importantly, I completely stopped reacting to Chloe's manufactured crises. When my phone rang at 2 in the morning because Chloe was having a panic attack about her rent, I let it go to voicemail. When she showed up at my apartment crying, I wouldn't let her inside. I would stand in the doorway, look at her blankly, and say, "I have a massive presentation tomorrow. I need to sleep. Call Mom." And then I would close the door in her face. The backlash was intense at first. My parents called me constantly, accusing me of being heartless and cold. They said the rejection from the Seattle job had turned me into a bitter person. I just agreed with them. "You're right," I would say in a completely flat tone. "I'm just really focused on my current job right now. I don't have the emotional bandwidth for anything else." Eventually, because they couldn't get a reaction out of me, they stopped trying. They just absorbed Chloe's chaos entirely on their own, which left me completely free to focus on my revenge. Because I couldn't leave for Seattle, I decided I was going to bring a Seattle-level ambition to my home city. I was going to conquer the ground they walked on. I took the deleted offer letter from the Seattle firm, the physical proof that the market valued me at a VP level and a $180,000 salary, and I walked right into the office of the CEO at my current logistics company. I didn't tell him I was trapped. I told him I had a standing, highly competitive offer from a West Coast competitor, but that I preferred to stay local if, and only if, he could match the title and get close to the compensation. He didn't want to lose me. Within 48 hours, I was promoted to Vice President of Regional Operations, and my salary was bumped to $160,000 with a generous annual bonus structure. I didn't upgrade my lifestyle, I didn't buy a luxury car, and I didn't move out of my modest one-bedroom apartment. I lived like I was making $40,000 a year, and I hoarded every single extra penny I made. But I didn't just let the money sit in a savings account. I spent my nights aggressively educating myself on commercial real estate and distressed asset acquisition. My logic was simple. My sister's entire life was funded by the illusion of stability provided by my parents, but my parents were aging, their retirement funds were finite, and eventually, Chloe was going to run out of runway. I wanted to own the very infrastructure of her life. Within a year, I bought my first investment property, a beat-up duplex on the edge of town. I used my logistics background to completely streamline the renovation process. Acting as my own general contractor to keep costs down, I rented both units out, immediately generating positive cash flow. 6 months later, I leveraged the equity in the duplex to buy a fourplex. I kept repeating the process, quietly rolling every single dollar of profit into the next acquisition. I formed a blind LLC called Apex Properties. My name wasn't on any public-facing documents. I worked 100 hours a week for 3 years. I missed holidays. I skipped family birthdays, sending generic gift cards in the mail. My family thought I had become a reclusive, workaholic spinster. They whispered behind my back about how sad my life was, completely oblivious to the fact that I was rapidly becoming a multimillionaire right under their noses. And then, in year 3, the golden opportunity presented itself. There was a stunning, historic brick warehouse right in the center of the downtown arts district. A local developer had started converting it into ultra-luxury boutique loft, but he had mismanaged his capital and went completely bankrupt right before the interior finishing stage. The bank was desperate to offload the half-finished building to avoid carrying the debt on their books. Through a connection I had made in my commercial real estate network, Apex Properties swept in. I partnered with a small private equity group, secured the commercial loan, and bought the entire building for a fraction of its projected value. We spent the next 8 months finishing the interiors with top-of-the-line appliances, exposed brick walls, massive industrial windows, and a private rooftop terrace. It was the premier, most sought-after rental building in the city. The lofts were commanding exorbitant rent prices, and we had a waiting list before the paint was even dry. Right around the time the building was preparing to open, a massive shift happened in my family. My paternal grandfather passed away. It was a sad time, but my grandfather had been a very frugal man, and he left a surprise inheritance to all of his grandchildren. Each of us received a check for $50,000. I immediately deposited my $50,000 into the Capital Reserve account for Apex Properties. Chloe, on the other hand, viewed her $50,000 as a lottery winning. She had been bouncing between terrible retail jobs and living in a dingy basement apartment, completely miserable. In her mind, this money was her ticket to becoming the glamorous downtown city girl she always pretended to be on Instagram. She didn't want to save it, and she certainly didn't want to invest it. She wanted to spend it on aesthetics. I received an email from my property management company one Tuesday morning. They handled all the day-to-day operations and tenant screenings for the luxury loft building so I wouldn't have to deal with the public. The email was a standard applicant approval request for Unit 402, a gorgeous, sun-drenched corner loft. I opened the attached PDF to review the applicant's financial background. The name on the application was Chloe. I stared at the screen. I actually let out a loud, sharp laugh in the middle of my quiet office. The sheer magnetic irony of the universe was almost too perfect to believe. Chloe had taken her inheritance, showed the property manager a massive bank statement to bypass the standard income requirements, and applied for a luxury loft that cost 3 times what she could actually afford on her monthly salary. She was planning to burn through her grandfather's money just to live in a status symbol. I picked up my phone and called the lead property manager. "Hi, David," I said smoothly. "I'm looking at the application for Unit 402. The applicant's name is Chloe." "Yes," David replied. "Her income is a bit spotty, but she provided proof of a $50,000 liquid asset account, and she's offering to pay the first 6 months of rent upfront in cash. It's a solid guarantee for the short term." "Approve it," I told him. "Take the 6 months of rent upfront. Take the maximum security deposit. But listen to me very carefully. Do not sign the final lease agreement with her. Tell her the owner of the building likes to personally welcome all new tenants and hand over the keys on move-in day. Schedule her move-in for this Saturday at noon. I will be there to handle the paperwork." "Understood," David said, completely unaware of the absolute storm he was helping me orchestrate. The rest of the week moved in slow motion. I didn't hear a word from Chloe. She was keeping her new glamorous apartment a complete secret from me, likely because she wanted to orchestrate a massive, dramatic reveal. She wanted to invite me over and rub her beautiful, luxurious new life in my face. She wanted to prove that she was thriving, that she didn't need me anymore, and that she had finally surpassed the boring, workaholic older sister. Saturday arrived. It was a beautiful, crisp autumn morning. I dressed meticulously. I wore a tailored slate gray suit, a silk blouse, and sharp black stilettos. I wanted to look exactly like the apex predator I had become. I drove to the downtown building, parked in my private reserved owner's spot in the underground garage, and took the elevator up to the 4th floor. I unlocked Unit 402 with my master key. The loft was breathtaking. The morning sun was pouring through the massive industrial windows, illuminating the gleaming hardwood floors and the pristine quartz countertops. I placed the final lease agreement and a sleek silver pen on the kitchen island. I poured myself a cup of coffee from a thermos I brought, stood by the windows, and waited. At exactly 12:15 p.m., I heard the heavy elevator doors chime down the hallway. I heard the unmistakable booming voice of my father complaining about carrying boxes, the nervous chatter of my mother, and Chloe's high-pitched, excited squeal. She had brought the whole audience. I heard a key slide into the heavy oak door of Unit 402. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Chloe walked in first, carrying a designer tote bag, a massive, triumphant smile plastered across her face. My parents trailed right behind her, carrying cardboard boxes labeled kitchen. "Welcome to my new—" Chloe started to yell, throwing her arms out in a grand, theatrical gesture. Her voice completely died in her throat. The color vanished from her face so fast I thought she might actually pass out. Her arms slowly dropped to her sides. I was standing perfectly still in the center of the massive loft, holding a cup of coffee, looking at her with a calm, completely unreadable expression. My parents walked in behind her, bumping into her back because she had frozen in the doorway. "Chloe, what are you doing? Keep moving," my father muttered before he looked up and saw me. "What on earth? How did you get in here?" My mother peeked around my father's shoulder, her jaw dropping. "Honey, what are you doing here? Chloe wanted this to be a surprise. Did the property manager let you in early?" I took a slow sip of my coffee. The silence in the room was absolute perfection. I could hear the hum of the central air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic from the street below. "The property manager didn't let me in, Mom," I said, my voice echoing slightly against the high brick walls. "I have the master keys." Chloe finally found her voice. It was a weak, trembling whisper. Why? Why do you have the master keys to my apartment?" "I have the master keys to all 12 units on this floor, Chloe," I replied, taking a few slow steps toward the kitchen island. "I have the keys to the penthouse. I have the keys to the commercial retail space on the ground floor. I have the keys because my company, Apex Properties, owns the entire building." My father let out a confused, nervous chuckle, setting his box down on the floor. "Okay, very funny. You own the building. Right. Come on, are you dating the landlord or something?" I didn't smile. I didn't laugh. I just looked at my father with eyes so cold he actually took a step back. I reached down to the kitchen island, picked up the thick stack of legal documents, and turned it around so they could see the front page. Printed at the very top, in bold, black ink, was the lease agreement between Chloe and Apex Properties. And right at the bottom, already signed in crisp blue ink, was my name, listed as the Chief Executive Officer and sole proprietor. My mother gasped, covering her mouth with her hands. My father stared at the paper, his brain struggling to comprehend the massive, astronomical shift in reality that was occurring right in front of him. Chloe looked like she was going to vomit. She stared at the signature, her eyes wide, terrified and completely trapped. You own this?" Chloe stammered, pointing a shaking finger at the exposed brick walls. How? How could you possibly afford this?" "I saved my money, Chloe," I said smoothly, leaning against the counter. "I didn't spend it on designer bags. I didn't rely on Mom and Dad to pay my rent. And, most importantly, I didn't have to turn down any incredibly lucrative career opportunities in Seattle. Because, as it turns out, the logistics market here is remarkably profitable when you apply yourself." I watched the exact moment the realization hit her. I watched her eyes process the mention of Seattle. She knew. She instantly knew that I knew what she had done 3 years ago. The smug, entitled, manipulative sister completely evaporated, replaced by raw, unadulterated terror. She had used her inheritance, her only financial safety net, to hand me 6 months of rent in cash. She had legally bound herself to a highly restrictive, incredibly expensive lease agreement, and I was the one holding the contract. "I'm not signing it," Chloe whispered, taking a step backward toward the door. "I'm not living here. Give me my money back. I'm canceling the application." "You can certainly refuse to sign the final lease, Chloe," I said calmly, picking up the silver pen and tapping it lightly against the marble counter. "But as per the terms of the application agreement you already signed with my property manager on Tuesday, the 6 months of advanced rent and the security deposit are entirely non-refundable upon approval to hold the unit off the market. If you walk out that door, I keep every single cent of your inheritance, and you walk away with absolutely nothing." My mother burst into tears. "You can't do that. That's her money. That's her grandfather's money. You are her sister." "I am not her sister today, Mom," I said, my voice hardening into steel. "Today, I am her landlord, and these are the terms of the business arrangement she requested." I looked directly at Chloe. She was shaking. She had backed herself into a corner so tight there was absolutely no way out. If she left, she was broke and homeless. If she stayed, she belonged to me. "Here is how this is going to work," I told her, my voice dropping to a terrifyingly quiet register. "You are going to sign this lease. You are going to live in my building. And you are going to follow every single rule in this contract to the absolute letter. If you are 1 day late on your rent after your 6 months expire, I will legally evict you, and I will ruin your credit score forever. If you call me at 2 in the morning because you are having a panic attack, I will evict you. If you ever breathe a single word of my business, my finances, or this building to anyone outside of this room, I will evict you." I picked up the pen and held it out toward her. "You wanted to keep me close, Chloe," I said softly, staring right into her terrified, tear-filled eyes. "You didn't want me to move across the country. You hacked into my email, you destroyed my career opportunity, and you kept me right here in this city. Well, congratulations. I'm here. Now, sign the lease." The silence in the room was deafening. My father didn't defend her. My mother just stood there weeping into her hands. They knew. They knew I had outplayed all of them, and they knew I held the absolute ultimate power. Chloe slowly, mechanically, walked across the beautiful hardwood floor. She took the pen from my hand. Her fingers were ice cold. She leaned over the pristine quartz island, tears dripping off her chin and splashing onto the paper, and she signed her name on the dotted line. She handed the pen back to me without saying a word. "Welcome home, Chloe," I said. I picked up the signed contract, placed it perfectly into my leather briefcase, walked past my weeping mother and completely silent father, and left the apartment. I rode the elevator down to the garage, got into my car, and drove away, feeling the absolute purest form of closure I have ever experienced. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today and listening to this story. I know it's a heavy one, but there is incredible power in sharing these experiences and realizing the strength we all have to rewrite our own narratives. If you found value in today's story, or if it gave you a sense of vindication, please do me a favor and hit that like button right now. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out when a new story drops. We are building an amazing community here, and your support means absolutely everything to me. Until next time, protect your peace, guard your goals in silence, and remember that your future belongs entirely to you. Take care.